I was 7 months pregnant when my husband called me a disgrace in front of the entire Raleigh elite, on the red carpet. Ethan recoiled from my touch and whispered, "Stop acting." Security dragged me toward the exit as flashbulbs blinded me, but then a silver-haired stranger stood up at the head table. The room froze. He pointed his cane at Ethan and said, "You just kicked the wrong person out of my party. My name is Claire Donovan, and at 29 years old, I should have been glowing. I was 7 months pregnant, standing under the crystal chandeliers of the Eldridge Grand Gala in Raleigh. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. I smoothed my hand over the dark blue silk of my gown, a dress that felt more like a cage than a garment. Beside me stood Ethan Cole, the newly appointed CEO of Kestrel and Rowe Systems. He looked perfect in his tuxedo, the very image of success. I reached for his arm, seeking stability as the photographers shouted our names. He sidestepped me. My hand fell into empty space. The flashbulbs popped like gunfire. Ethan turned his back to me, flashing that charming smile at the press before leaning in close to my ear. His breath was cold against my skin. "Stop acting," he hissed. It's over, Claire." I froze. "Ethan, what are you—" Before I could finish, the crowd parted. My mother-in-law, Marjorie Cole, marched toward us like a general on a battlefield, flanked by my sister-in-law, Tessa. Marjorie did not look at me. She walked straight to the head of security, a burly man standing by the velvet rope, and pressed a thick cream envelope into his palm. The guard nodded once. He signaled 2 uniformed men behind him. They moved toward me with terrifying speed. "Please escort Ms. Donovan out," Marjorie said, her voice carrying over the music. "She is trespassing. I gasped, my hand instinctively covering my belly. "I'm his wife, Ethan. Tell them." Ethan turned to the crowd. He raised his hands, playing the victim perfectly. "I am sorry everyone has to see this," he announced, his voice steady. "My wife. She has betrayed our marriage. She thought she could trap me with this pregnancy, but I will not be manipulated any longer." A collective gasp ripped through the ballroom. Hundreds of eyes shifted from his face to my protruding stomach. I felt naked, stripped of dignity. "That's a lie," I screamed. But the sound was swallowed by the murmurs of the elite. The guards grabbed my arms. Their grip was bruising. "Let go of me," I struggled, but my center of gravity was off. I stumbled. One of the guards yanked me back, and I felt a sharp snap at my neck. My mother's silver locket, the only thing I had left of her, clattered to the marble floor and slid away under a table. "My necklace!" I cried out. "Please, I need my necklace. Keep moving." The guard grunted. I reached for my clutch to find my phone, to call someone, anyone, but it was gone. Knocked from my hand in the scuffle, I was being dragged past the VIP section, past the pitying sneers of people I had dined with just weeks ago. The service exit loomed ahead. I was about to be thrown into the alley like garbage. Then a cane struck the floor. It was a singular, sharp sound that cut through the noise like a blade. At the center table of honor, an old man with silver hair stood up. He raised a trembling hand. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Even the security guards froze, their hands still gripping my biceps. The master of ceremonies, usually so smooth, stuttered into the microphone. Mr. Walter Hargrove. Is there a problem?" "Sir." The name rippled through the room. Walter Hargrove, the invisible billionaire, the donor whose name was on the building but whose face nobody ever saw. Walter did not look at the MC. He did not look at the crowd. His steel-gray eyes were locked onto Ethan. "You," Walter said. His voice was not loud, but it carried a terrifying weight. Ethan straightened his tie, looking confused but arrogant. "Excuse me, sir. This is a private family matter. "If you will just quiet," Walter commanded. He pointed the rubber tip of his cane at Ethan's chest. "You just kicked the wrong person out of my party." I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. I had never met this man in my life. I looked at Marjorie. The blood had drained from her face. She looked as if she had seen a ghost, or worse, as if she had just heard the name of a secret she thought she had buried deep in the ground. 10 months ago, my biggest worry was meeting deadlines for my freelance design work at Brightline Atelier. Ethan was still the ambitious husband chasing his big break, burning the candle at both ends to secure funding for his startup. Our apartment was small, messy, and full of love. When the pregnancy test turned positive on a rainy Tuesday, we cried on the bathroom floor. Ethan held my face in his hands, his eyes wet with tears. "Once the baby is here, I promise, Claire," he whispered, kissing my forehead. "I will slow down. It is going to be just us." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The change did not happen overnight. It started the week Kestrel and Rose Systems landed what Ethan called a massive federal contract. He never explained the details, only that it involved government infrastructure and required absolute discretion. That was when my mother-in-law, Marjorie, began to appear. She did not visit. She invaded. She walked through our home, touching furniture and critiquing the curtains as if she were inspecting a rental property she planned to renovate. Then came the paperwork. One morning, Ethan placed a stack of documents on the kitchen table right next to my steaming cup of herbal tea. He was already dressed in his suit, checking his watch every 5 seconds. "I need you to sign these, honey," he said, tapping the paper with a pen. "Just standard security updates. Because of the new contract, the company needs to vet all spouses." I reached for my reading glasses, but he gently pushed the pen into my hand. "We are late. Claire, I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. Just sign the tabs. It is just legalese." I trusted him. I signed my name on line after line, barely glancing at the text. Slowly, my world began to shrink. First, it was the joint bank account. I went to buy groceries and the card was declined. When I called Ethan in a panic, he sounded calm. Oh, I had to change the security settings because of a hack attempt. He lied smoothly. "I will transfer you an allowance to a separate card. It is safer this way." Then my doctor appointments started shifting. I would wake up ready for my prenatal checkup, only to find Ethan had rescheduled it. "I have a critical meeting," he would say, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "I need to be there for the ultrasound. Claire, we will go next week." But he never seemed present, even when he was there. One afternoon, I walked into his home office and he slammed his laptop shut instantly. The air smelled of expensive, floral perfume scent that was definitely not mine. "A client," he said before I could ask, his voice tight. She dragged on the meeting too long. My sister-in-law, Tessa, made sure I knew my place. During a family dinner where I tried to ask about the company's expansion, she laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You just don't understand our world. Claire," she said, swirling her wine. "You are better suited for the background. Let Ethan handle the thinking." The most unsettling moment happened a month before the gala. I found Ethan in the nursery, holding my medical file. He was taking photos of the documents with his phone. When he saw me, he did not jump. He just looked at the paper. The doctor said the 18th. "Right?" he asked. Is that the absolute latest date, Ethan? Babies come when they are ready," I said, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Why does the exact date matter so much?" He just smiled, a cold expression that did not reach his eyes. "Just planning, honey, logistics. The night before the Eldridge Grand Gala, the trap snapped shut. Ethan came home with a garment bag. Marjorie had chosen the dress. It was a stunning, floor-length midnight blue gown, but when I tried to zip it up, the fabric dug painfully into my ribs. It was a size too small for a woman 7 months pregnant. I can't breathe in this. Ethan, I said, looking at my reflection. My belly was pressed tight against the silk. He stood behind me, looking at the mirror, not at me. Beauty requires sacrifice. Claire, he said, his voice devoid of warmth. Marjorie went to a lot of trouble to get this. You need to look the part tomorrow. Just suck it in. I stood there, gasping for air in the dress that his mother bought, staring at a husband I no longer recognized, having no idea that the suffocation was only just beginning. I sat on the edge of the guest bed in Lena Ramirez's apartment, clutching a mug of bone broth until my knuckles turned white. Lena, a head chef who solved problems with the same efficiency she used to debone a chicken, placed a hand on my shoulder. She did not offer empty platitudes. She just made sure I ate and kept the curtains drawn against the prying world. My phone, a burner Lena had bought me after mine disappeared, pinged with a notification. It was a generic email notification from a sender named Watcher Zoe1. The message was brief. Do not sign anything else. Look at the prenup. The original draft. My heart hammered against my ribs. I scrambled off the bed and dug through the plastic bin of old tax returns and documents I had managed to grab from the house months ago during a cleaning spree. I found it at the bottom. The prenuptial agreement. It was 26 pages long, a dense brick of legal jargon that Ethan had dismissed as a formality back when we were happy. I flipped through the pages. In the margins, there were faint pencil notes in a handwriting I now recognized as belonging to the Cole family lawyer. My eyes snagged on a clause regarding marital funds and bad faith. It stated that if a spouse was proven to be acting in bad faith regarding the company's assets, they forfeited rights to any future windfalls. "Lena!" I called out, my voice shaking. He didn't just kick me out. He's building a case. Lena walked in, wiping her hands on a towel. Let's dig deeper. You said your old cloud account was linked to the iPad you left here last Christmas. We spent the next 2 hours recovering an old iCloud backup. Lena was a wizard with technology, bypassing the two-factor authentication that Ethan had likely tried to block. A folder of synced photos popped up. My breath hitched. There was a photo of a document lying on Ethan's desk. It was blurry, but readable. It was a contract amendment sent to Marjorie with a caption, "If she is removed from the file before the 1st of November, the equity remains solely mine." November 1st, I whispered. That is 2 weeks after my due date. He isn't just divorcing me. He is timing it. The next morning, I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses to the bank. I needed to know what was happening to the money we had saved. The bank manager, a woman I had known for 3 years, looked uncomfortable as she printed the statement. "I see a series of recurring transfers. Mrs. Cole," she said, "starting 6 months ago. $5,000 a week moving to a recipient labeled Greyhaven Liaison LLC. Greyhaven? I frowned. We don't use any consultants by that name." The manager turned the screen toward me. "Well, the authorizations are all there. The transfers for the larger sums were verified in person." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "The person who signed to verify the large transfers was you, Claire." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What, that's impossible. I never came in here. We have the digital signature on file from the remote authorization forms," she insisted. "It matches your specimen signature perfectly." I walked out of the bank, feeling like the pavement was swaying beneath my feet. I went back to Lena's and dumped the security update papers Ethan had made me sign onto the kitchen table. I looked closely at them for the first time. The formatting was off. The page numbers jumped from 3 to 5. The header on one page was slightly pixelated, as if it had been scanned and pasted from another document. And my signature. It was there, at the bottom of a page authorizing the transfer of assets, but it sat slightly too high on the line. Then it hit me. The memory was so sharp it made me nauseous. Months ago, Ethan had given me a sleek, heavy black pen. "Use this one, honey," he had said. It writes smoother. Keep it on the desk. The pen. I gasped, grabbing Lena's arm. Oh, God. Lena. The pen. What about it? It was a smart pen, I said, my voice trembling with rage. The kind that records every stroke digitally. He didn't need me to sign the bank forms. He just needed me to sign those stupid security updates so the pen could capture my signature. He copied and pasted my life away. I looked at the paperwork, seeing the trap for what it was. Ethan hadn't just betrayed me. He had engineered my destruction, stroke by digital stroke. But he had made one mistake. He assumed I would never look close enough to see the pixels. Avery Klein's office was not in a glass skyscraper. It was a cramped room above a bakery, smelling faintly of yeast and old paper. But the woman sitting behind the metal desk was sharper than any corporate attorney I had ever met. She was in her 40s, wearing a gray suit that had seen better days, and she did not offer me tea or sympathy. She slapped a yellow legal pad onto the desk. "Listen to me, Claire," Avery said, her eyes scanning my face with laser focus. "I do not care about your feelings right now. I care about facts. In this room, we do not need justice. We need evidence." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I understand." Avery pulled my copy of the prenuptial agreement toward her. She uncapped a red marker and circled a paragraph on page 18. "Here is our dagger," she said, tapping the paper. "The bad faith and coercion clause. If we can prove Ethan concealed assets or falsified documents to cheat the marital estate, the judge can throw out the protections he thinks he has. He could lose everything." She did not waste time. Within an hour, Avery had hired a forensic document examiner to analyze the digital signatures on the bank transfers. She also filed emergency preservation orders for the Kestrel and Rowe email servers, the security camera footage from the Gala, and the raw access logs from our joint bank accounts. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling a spark of agency return. "You write." Avery commanded, "Start a log. Every cramp, every missed doctor appointment, every threat. We build a timeline. If you felt pain, write it down. If he made you cry, date it." She turned to Lena, who was sitting in the corner with her arms crossed. "And you. I need a sworn affidavit about the night of the Gala. Describe her physical state, the shock, the missing property, the public humiliation." Lena nodded firmly. He called her a disgrace. I will write down every word he spat at her. 2 days later, Avery made her first move. It was not the divorce filing Ethan was expecting. Instead, she filed an emergency motion for harassment, unlawful eviction, and financial lockout. It was a precise, stinging slap to the face. We were not asking for millions yet. We were asking for the keys to the apartment and access to my own money. It forced Ethan onto the defensive immediately. The reaction was swift. A courier arrived at Lena's apartment the next morning with a thick envelope from a high-end public relations firm representing Ethan. Inside was a settlement offer. They called it one-time spousal support, contingent on me signing a non-disclosure agreement that would ban me from speaking about the marriage or the Gala forever. I read the number. It was $50,000. He thinks I am worth $50,000, I asked, my voice trembling with insult. "After everything, that is the price of my silence." Avery took the letter and tossed it into the trash bin. She let out a short, cold laugh. "Good," she said. "This proves they are terrified. They fear your mouth more than they fear the court." Then came the breakthrough. Avery walked into the room holding a sheet of paper, her expression grim. She had received the return on the subpoena for Greyhaven Liaison LLC, the mysterious company receiving our money. "We found the owner," Avery said, placing the document in front of me. "Greyhaven is not a consulting firm. It is a shell company registered to a residential address in the suburbs." I looked at the name listed as the registered agent, Thomas J. Miller. "Who is Thomas Miller?" I asked. "My investigator ran him," Avery replied. "He is on the payroll of the Cole Family Trust, specifically He is Marjorie Cole's private driver." The room went silent. Marjorie was funneling our marital savings into a shell company owned by her chauffeur. It was money laundering, plain and simple. Avery sat down and looked me dead in the eye. "We have them, Claire. But listen to me carefully. Now is when it gets dangerous." "Dangerous?" I asked, instinctively touching my stomach. "They know we are looking," Avery warned. "They are going to stop attacking your bank account and start attacking your character. Prepare yourself. They are going to throw dirt on your name before we can even get this file to a judge. It is going to get very ugly." The digital assault began on a Tuesday morning. Silent but devastating. Ethan posted a long, emotional letter on his social media profiles. He did not name me directly, but he did not have to. He wrote about the heartbreak of betrayal and the pain of discovering the person you love is merely an actor. He mentioned protecting his legacy from dishonesty. There was no evidence, no facts, just a vague, sorrowful narrative that painted him as the wounded saint. The comments flooded in. Strangers called me a monster. They called me a parasite. By noon, my sister-in-law, Tessa, escalated the attack. She posted a grainy photo of me sitting with Avery at a coffee shop near the courthouse. The caption was short and brutal. "While my brother grieves, she is already lawyering up to take what she did not earn. Sad to see the greed." I sat in Lena's kitchen, watching my reputation disintegrate in real time. My phone buzzed. It was a client, a boutique owner I had been designing a website for. "I am sorry." "Claire," the woman said, her voice stiff. We have to pause the contract. The brand cannot be associated with this kind of scandal right now." "It is not a scandal," I pleaded, gripping the phone. "It is a divorce. Please, I need this work." "I am sorry," she said, and the line went dead. They were not just shaming me, they were starving me out. Then the doorbell rang. A delivery driver handed Lena a massive bouquet of white lilies, the kind usually reserved for funerals. There was a card tucked into the foliage. I opened it, my hands trembling. "Wishing you a safe delivery if you are still considered fit to be a mother." It was signed simply M. "That witch!" Lena spat, throwing the card onto the counter. "She is threatening to take the baby. If you are still considered fit, that is a threat to call Child Protective Services." I felt cold, but Avery, who had just arrived with a stack of files, looked at the flowers with a shark-like grin. "Do not throw those away," Avery ordered. "Take a picture. Screenshot Ethan's post. Screenshot Tessa's post. They just made a mistake." How I asked, wiping a tear from my cheek. "They are publicly disparaging a pregnant woman and sending veiled threats to her temporary residence," Avery explained, opening her laptop. "I am not filing a defamation suit yet. I am filing for a restraining order based on harassment and emotional distress. We will use their own posts to prove they are obsessed with destroying you." That night, as I lay in bed trying to ignore the internet, my phone pinged with a direct message on Instagram. It was from a private account with no profile picture. "I saw what they are doing to you," the message read. "They did this to me too, 4 years ago." My heart hammered. I typed back, "Who are you?" A photo appeared on the screen. It was a picture of a crumpled document on a wooden table. It was a non-disclosure agreement. I zoomed in on the text. The wording was identical to the one the PR firm had sent me. The same one-time support payment, the same forfeit of rights. But the date was from 4 years ago, and the name on the other side was a woman named Julianne. Ethan was not the husband then. The stranger wrote, "It was his cousin. Marjorie runs the playbook. The men are just the face." I dropped the phone on the duvet. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Ethan was a villain to me, yes. But in the grand scheme of the Cole family, he was just another employee. Marjorie was the CEO of this misery. She had a system for disposing of women who got too close to the family money, and Ethan was just following her script. The next morning, a local reporter contacted me, asking for an exclusive interview to tell my side. The temptation was overwhelming. I wanted to scream the truth. I wanted to burn them down. "No," Avery said firmly when I told her. "Not yet. If you speak now, you look like a bitter ex-wife throwing mud. We need to wait for the explosion." "But they are winning," I said, my voice cracking. They are erasing me. Avery, they are making noise," Avery corrected. "We are making a case." I looked at the sonogram photo I had taped to Lena's mirror. I took a deep breath. I would not play their game. I would not leak photos or send nasty notes. I would not endanger my pregnancy with rage. "Okay," I whispered. "No interviews. We wait. I would win this. Not with mud, but with the one thing they seemed to have forgotten existed the truth." The forensic report arrived on a gray Thursday morning, and it changed everything. Avery slapped the folder onto her metal desk with a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the small office. "We got them," Avery said, her eyes gleaming with predatory focus. The document examiner finished the analysis. 3 of the high-value transfer authorizations are perfect geometric matches to your signature from the year prior. That is physically impossible. No human signs their name exactly the same way twice. It is a digital trace. I looked at the enlarged images of my signature. They were identical, pixel for pixel. He stole my hand. I whispered, feeling a fresh wave of violation. He used that smart pen to steal my hand. And we know why he was in a rush. Avery continued, pulling up a timeline she had drawn on a whiteboard. "We got the bank subpoena results. Look at the dates. The transfers to Greyhaven Liaison LLC did not just happen randomly. They spiked exactly 6 weeks before the gala." I traced the line with my finger. It was a steep climb. "They were draining our joint accounts dry right before they planned to humiliate me. But where did the money go?" I asked. "Greyhaven is a shell company." "Does the driver just keep it?" "No," Avery said, pacing the room. "We followed the breadcrumbs. Greyhaven donates 90% of its intake to a registered charity called the Beacon Initiative." Sounds noble, right? But guess who? The Beacon Initiative hires for exclusive management consulting. She flipped the board over. A thick red line pointed from the charity back to a single entity. "Kestrel and Rose Systems," Avery announced. "They are round-tripping the money. Claire, they take marital funds, which you own half of, wash it through 2 shell companies, and bring it back into the company as consulting revenue, which is corporate property. They are literally turning our savings into his stock value." My stomach churned. It was not just greed. It was an intricate, cold-blooded machine designed to leave me with nothing but the clothes on my back. Just then, the office door opened. A young man in a hooded sweatshirt slipped inside, looking over his shoulder. This was Greg, a junior accountant at Kestrel and Rowe who Avery had managed to flip. He looked terrified. He sat on the edge of the chair, his leg bouncing nervously. I can't stay long," Greg stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "If Marjorie finds out I am here, I will never work in this state again. Just tell us what you found." "Greg," Avery said, her voice unusually soft. Greg pulled a crumpled flash drive from his pocket. "Ethan is selling. He is offloading a 40% stake in the company. The deal closes 48 hours after the gala. That is why they needed the revenue numbers to look high. That is why they needed the money from your accounts. Who is the buyer?" I asked. Greg hesitated. "It was listed as a blind trust, but I saw the signatory page on the draft agreement. It is Walter Hargrove." The air left the room. "Walter." I gasped. "The man at the gala. He is the angel investor," Greg confirmed. "But there is a catch. The contract has a massive morality clause. It says that if the principal leadership engages in any public conduct that brings disrepute to the firm, the deal is void. and the investor retains the option to seize controlling interest. I leaned back in my chair, the pieces finally clicking into place. Walter Hargrove did not stand up at the gala just to be a hero. He stood up because he was conducting due diligence. He was watching his investment. He wanted to see what kind of man Ethan Cole really was before he signed the check. "One more thing," Greg said, sliding a small digital recorder across the desk. I found this on the server. It was an auto backup from the conference room." Avery pressed play. The audio was grainy, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Marjorie. "Make sure the prenup holds." Marjorie's voice sneered from the speaker. "By the time the ink is dry on the sale, she will be destitute. Don't worry about her making a scene. Once she is out, she will just be noise. Just background noise." I stared at the recorder. They did not see me as a person. They did not see me as a wife or a mother. I was just an inefficiency to be eliminated. "They think I am noise," I said, my voice hardening into something steel-heavy. I placed a hand on my belly. "What do you want to do?" Avery asked. "We can use this to get a massive settlement." "No," I said. "I don't want a settlement, Avery. I don't want a piece of the pie." I looked at the red lines on the whiteboard, the diagram of their theft. "Walter has a morality clause," I said, "and I have the proof that Ethan is a fraud. We are not just going to divorce him. We are going to collapse the entire deal. I am going to take that system they used to crush me, and I am going to bring it down on top of their heads." The meeting place was not a boardroom or a sterile office. It was the Hargrove Private Library, a sanctuary of dark mahogany and silence hidden behind an unassuming brick facade in the historic district. The air inside smelled of beeswax and old paper. There were no flashing lights here, no cameras, just the heavy, quiet weight of real power. I sat in a leather wingback chair that felt large enough to swallow me whole. Across from me sat Walter Hargrove. He looked different than he had at the gala, without the tuxedo, wearing a simple cardigan. He looked older but sharper, like a retired general who still slept with a pistol under his pillow. His elderly assistant, a woman who moved like a ghost, placed a porcelain cup of tea before me and vanished. On the table between us lay a single, sealed envelope. "You have your mother's eyes, Claire," Walter said softly. He did not say it as a compliment, but as a statement of fact. I set my tea down, my hand trembling slightly. "Mr. Hargrove, I appreciate what you did at the gala, but I don't understand why." "You don't know me. I did not know you," he corrected. "But I knew Sarah." My breath caught. "My mother. But she was a school teacher. She didn't run in your circles." Walter smiled, a sad, fleeting expression. "Circles change, my dear. 40 years ago, I was not Walter Hargrove, the billionaire. I was just a man who had made some very bad mistakes. Your mother was the first person to offer me a hand when everyone else saw a liability. She saved me from myself." He tapped the envelope. "I promised her that if she ever had a child, I would keep a weather eye out. I set up a small trust for you years ago. It is not a fortune, but it is enough to ensure you never have to tolerate a man like Ethan Cole for survival." I looked at the envelope, realizing that while I had been fighting to survive, a safety net had existed all along. But I did not reach for it. "I didn't come here for money," I said, my voice steady. "I know." Walter nodded approvingly. "You want to know why I was at that wretched party." He leaned forward, his demeanor shifting from grandfatherly to predatory. "I despise thieves, Claire, but I despise hypocrites more. Ethan and Marjorie Cole treat charity like a dry cleaning service for their reputation. They invited me to invest, thinking I was just a senile checkbook. They did not know I have been auditing them for 6 months." He slid a document across the table. It was a copy of the funding agreement between his firm and Kestrel and Rowe Systems. He pointed to a paragraph on the 3rd page. "Section 14, he said, "the morality clause. Kestrel and Rowe receives funding only if executive leadership demonstrates conduct consistent with ethical and legal standards. If they breach this, the deal dies, and I retain the right to audit their internal books publicly. I read the words. It was a loaded gun pointing straight at Ethan's head. I don't want your money, Mr. Hargrove, I said, meeting his steel-gray gaze. And I don't want you to fight my divorce battle. That is my war. But I need something else. Name it. I need you to speak the truth. I said, not to me, to them, to the board. I need you to say what you saw, in front of the right people, at the right time. I need you to strip away their mask so I can fight the real enemy. Walter looked at me for a long moment. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. You think just like Sarah, he murmured. He reached under the table and pulled out a sleek, black tablet. He tapped the screen, and a grid of video files appeared. I did not just attend the gala to drink champagne, Walter revealed. I had my security team monitor the event. I have the footage of Marjorie handing the envelope to the guards. I have the emails she sent to her PR firm instructing them to spin the narrative of your instability 3 days before the event took place. I have the independent audit report showing the transfers to Greyhaven. My eyes widened. You knew they were going to do it. I suspected they would try something to isolate you, Walter said grimly. I was waiting for a trigger event, a moment where their arrogance outweighed their caution. Ethan provided that the moment he opened his mouth on that stage, he pushed the tablet toward me. I will not intervene in family court, Walter said, but I intend to clarify the matter of the fund fraud. When I expose the financial rot, the Cole family influence will shatter. Marjorie will lose her board seat. Ethan will lose his CEO title. Without their power, they are just bullies in expensive suits. I stood up, smoothing my dress over my stomach. I felt a strange sensation, not relief, but power. Cold, hard power. I don't want pity, I said firmly. I don't want to be the poor pregnant wife they rescued. I want them to pay because they underestimated the truth. Walter stood up with the help of his cane. He looked at me with genuine respect. Then we have a deal, he said. The Wintercrest Charity Gala is in 3 days. They expect to close my investment deal there. You just show up, Claire. You stand tall. He turned to look out the window at the gray city skyline. You stand there, he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble. Leave the speaking to me. The timing could not have been more perfect if we had written it into a script. Avery sat across from me in her small office, tapping a pen against a calendar. The Wintercrest Charity Gala, the second major social event of the season, was scheduled for Friday night. It was the same day the Superior Court judge was set to review our motion for a total asset freeze and an expanded data preservation order. It is a pincer move, Avery explained, her voice sharp and satisfied. In the morning, we hit them with the law. In the evening, we hit them with the optics. If they react poorly in public, it strengthens our argument that they are erratic and malicious. I will go, I said, looking at the invitation Walter had ensured was delivered to me. But I am not going there to win him back. Avery, I am done begging. Good. Avery nodded, because I have a team stationed in the hotel lobby. The moment Ethan or Marjorie engages in what we call public misconduct, my paralegal files a supplementary affidavit electronically. We will be live updating the judge on their behavior. Back at the apartment, Lena took charge of the visuals. She rejected the black dress I had picked out initially. No black, Lena said firmly, pulling a deep emerald green gown from a garment bag. Black looks like you are mourning the marriage. Red looks like you are looking for a fight. Green is life. Green is growth. You need to look calm. Claire, you need to look like the only sane person in the room. She helped me zip it up. It fit perfectly, accommodating my 7-month bump without squeezing the air out of my lungs. I looked in the mirror. I did not look like a victim. I looked like a mother. Meanwhile, Walter was setting his side of the board. He had not just invited his usual circle. He had specifically requested the presence of an independent auditor from a top firm, a senior member of the city council, and the regional director of the charitable foundation Kestrel and Rowe claimed to support. He was building a jury right in the middle of the ballroom. When the limousine Walter sent pulled up to the venue, I checked my phone one last time. Avery had sent a text metadata confirmed. "We are ready." I stepped out. The air was biting cold, but I barely felt it. Ethan was standing near the entrance, holding a glass of champagne. He looked triumphant. In his mind, tonight was his coronation. He believed Walter was going to announce the funding that would save his company. When he saw me, his smile twisted into a smirk. He walked over, not to escort me, but to block my path. "You really are a glutton for punishment, aren't you?" Ethan sneered, leaning in close so the cameras would not catch his expression. "I thought you would be hiding in a hole somewhere. What are you doing here?" "Claire." "Hoping for a scrap. I am here for the charity." "Ethan," I replied, my voice steady. "It is a public event." He laughed, a cruel, short sound. "Well, enjoy the show. My mother has prepared a little presentation about family values. I think you will find the slideshow illuminating." I knew exactly what he meant. Avery had intercepted the file Marjorie planned to project on the main stage screens. It was a series of photos edited to make it look like I had been partying while pregnant, accompanied by bank statements that had been doctored to show me draining funds. It was a digital assassination attempt, but they had made a fatal error. I touched the earpiece hidden under my hair. "Avery." He confirmed the presentation. "Perfect." Avery's voice crackled in my ear. "Let them hit play. We have the metadata analysis ready to broadcast. We can prove those photos were photoshopped and the timestamps on the bank documents were altered 3 days ago. If she runs that slideshow, she is presenting fabricated evidence to 500 witnesses." I looked past Ethan to where Marjorie stood by the audio-visual booth. She looked like a queen waiting for an execution. She had no idea she was standing on a trapdoor. I turned back to the red carpet. The photographers were shouting, their lenses focusing on the pregnant woman standing alone. I did not shrink away this time. I squared my shoulders. I placed a protective hand over my belly, feeling the strong, steady kick of my child. "Today," I whispered to myself, correcting the tremor in my voice. "Today, I do not beg. I prove." I approached the velvet rope, and Ethan immediately raised a hand to the head of security. He did not even look at me. He just flicked his wrist as if swatting away a fly. "She is not on the list," Ethan told the guard, his voice loud enough for the nearby reporters to hear. "Escort her out. We do not want a scene." The guard stepped forward, blocking my path with a massive chest. I did not flinch. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the cream-colored card with gold embossing. I handed it to the guard. "I believe you will find that invitation is valid," I said calmly. "It was issued this morning. Look at the signature." The guard squinted at the bottom of the card. He stiffened. It was signed by the personal executive assistant to Walter Hargrove. In this building, that signature was higher law than the CEO's word. The guard stepped aside, unhooking the rope. "Right this way, ma'am." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to strangle me, but Marjorie was already moving to Plan B. She stood by the stage, holding a remote clicker. She caught my eye and offered a thin, venomous smile before pressing the button. The massive LED screen behind the stage flickered to life. A title card appeared, "The True Cost of Betrayal." Then came a photo of me, clearly edited to make my eyes look manic, next to a bank statement with red circles around massive withdrawals. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marjorie began, lifting the microphone. Suddenly, Avery stepped out from the shadows near the tech booth. She slammed a folder onto the soundboard, startling the technician. "Cut the feed," Avery ordered, her voice cutting through the room. We have metadata proving these images are fabricated evidence. If you broadcast one more second, you are liable for defamation. The technician looked at the legal documents Avery thrust in his face, then at the screen. He killed the power. The screen went black instantly. Marjorie stood there, clicking the remote frantically at the dead screen. For the first time, her mask slipped. She slammed the remote onto the podium, the plastic cracking. "Fix it," she screeched, her voice shrill and unpolished. You incompetent fools, turn it back on." The room erupted in whispers. Marjorie Cole never yelled. Marjorie Cole never lost control. Ethan grabbed my elbow and dragged me into a shadowy alcove away from the staring eyes. His grip was painful. What do you want?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "Money, is that it? You want a payoff to stop this circus?" I looked at him, feeling a strange sense of detachment. I pulled my arm from his grasp. "I don't want your money, Ethan," I said softly. "I want you to tell the truth. Just once." "The truth." He laughed, a desperate, breathless sound. "The truth is what I say it is." A few feet away, Tessa was holding court with a group of investors, unaware that she was standing directly under a boom microphone used by the event videographers. "Oh, please," Tessa laughed, swirling her martini. "Claire is irrelevant. The assets were moved weeks ago. Everything was done before the signing date. She gets nothing." Her voice boomed through the overhead speakers, clear as a bell. The chatter in the room died down instantly. Tessa froze, the glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the floor. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Avery. "It is done. The judge just granted the temporary freezing order on Greyhaven. They are locked out." I looked at Ethan. He had heard the announcement too. He pulled out his phone, tapping furiously. His face turned the color of ash. He stared at the screen, realizing that the accounts he was depending on were now frozen solid. The money he had stolen to buy his freedom was gone. "You," Ethan stammered, backing away from me. You froze it. You froze everything." He looked around, wild-eyed. He needed to salvage the narrative. He needed to be the victim again. He rushed toward the stage, grabbing the microphone from his stunned mother. "Everyone, listen," Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. "I am trying to save this company from a vindictive woman. I have the divorce papers right here. I am announcing officially that—" Walter Hargrove stepped out from the shadows. He did not climb the stage. He simply stood next to the table of honor, leaning heavily on his cane. He did not shout, yet his presence commanded total silence. He held up a hand, and the sound engineer cut Ethan's microphone. Ethan tapped the dead mic, panic rising in his chest. He looked down at Walter. "Mr. Hargrove," Ethan pleaded, his voice thin without amplification. "Please, I am handling this." Walter looked up, his eyes cold and hard as iron. "I am not stopping you, son," Walter said, his deep voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. "I allow you to speak, so everyone can hear you bury yourself." Walter Hargrove did not shout. He did not need to. He simply took the microphone from Ethan's limp hand, his grip firm and unyielding. The silence in the ballroom was absolute, heavy with the anticipation of a guillotine blade about to drop. "My name is Walter Hargrove," he announced, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Most of you know me as a donor, but Mr. Cole knows me as the primary investor behind the capital injection he has been praying for all week. And I am the man holding the morality clause that governs the survival of this company." Ethan looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Walter turned to the crowd, holding up a file. "I have reviewed the internal records. There is undeniable evidence of signature forgery used to divert marital assets into a shell company known as Greyhaven Liaison LLC. Those funds were stolen from Mrs. Donovan, authorized by a digital signature that was traced and fabricated. He gestured to the side of the stage, where a severe-looking man in a gray suit stood waiting. "I have the independent auditor here to verify the forensic findings immediately," Walter said. Then he turned his body fully toward Ethan. The look on Walter's face was one of pure, unadulterated disgust. "You did not just throw a pregnant woman out of a gala." "Son," Walter said, his voice dripping with disappointment. "You used the sacred name of charity to launder your own lies." "I fund the truth. I do not fund you." Ethan staggered back, his heels catching on the edge of the riser. "Mr. Hargrove, wait," Ethan gasped, reaching out a trembling hand. It is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "There is nothing to explain," Walter interrupted, his tone final. "I have already transmitted the full evidentiary package to the board of directors of Kestrel and Rowe, as well as the Federal Financial Crimes Division. As of 5 minutes ago, my investment is withdrawn. Your shares are frozen pending the investigation. You are finished." Marjorie Cole, realizing the ship was sinking, lunged toward the microphone, her face twisted in a mask of desperate fury. "This is slander," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "That girl is a liar. She manipulated him." Walter did not even flinch. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and held it up for the front row to see. "Is that so, Mrs. Cole?" Walter asked calmly. "Because I have an email here, sent from your personal account to your son 3 months ago. It reads, and I quote, 'We need to lock her out and get her out before the valuation. Make sure she leaves with nothing but the dress on her back.' That does not sound like manipulation by her. It sounds like a conspiracy by you." The crowd gasped. People who had been drinking Marjorie's champagne just minutes ago physically stepped away from her, creating a circle of isolation around the older woman. She stood there, stripped of her dignity, exposed as the architect of her own destruction. Ethan crumbled. The arrogance evaporated, leaving behind a terrified, small man. He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. "Claire," he choked out, stepping toward me. "Claire, honey, please. I was pressured. You know my mother. I didn't want to do it. We can fix this. Think of the baby." I looked at him. I looked at the man I had vowed to love, the man who had tried to erase me with a digital pen. I felt no anger anymore, only a profound, quiet pity. "Ethan," I said softly, my voice carrying in the dead silence. "Did you kick me out for the money, or because you were afraid I would finally see who you really are?" He had no answer. He just hung his head, defeated. At that moment, the double doors swung open. Avery walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. She marched straight to Ethan, slapping a thick document onto his chest. "This is a court order issued 20 minutes ago," Avery announced, her voice ringing with professional satisfaction. "The restraining order is active. You and your mother have exactly 24 hours to surrender all electronic devices, passwords, and financial records to the court-appointed trustee. Do not try to delete anything. We are watching." As the police moved in to escort Ethan and Marjorie away from the guests, Walter walked over to me. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed, yellowed envelope. "This is not a gift from me," Walter said gently, placing it in my hands. "This is the confirmation of the Whitmore Trust. Your mother set it up decades ago, compounding interest every year since her death. She wanted you to have it when you were ready to stand on your own 2 feet. I touched the paper, tears pricking my eyes. It was not a bailout. It was a legacy. I had never been the poor girl they thought they could crush. I had been standing on a foundation of love my entire life. I just hadn't known it. They couldn't take it," I whispered, realizing the truth. They couldn't take what really mattered. I looked up at Walter. He smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Go on," he said. Walk out that front door. Claire, the car is waiting. I turned my back on the chaos. Flashbulbs erupted, capturing Ethan burying his face in his hands and Marjorie screaming at a lawyer, but I did not look back. I walked down the center of the red carpet, my hand resting on my daughter, my head held high. As I passed Walter, he leaned in and whispered one last thing. Now you choose your life. My dear, you do not need to ask for permission from anyone, ever again. I pushed open the heavy double doors and stepped out into the cool night air. The wind felt fresh. It felt like freedom. Thank you so much for listening to my story and following Claire's journey to justice. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please comment your country or city down below. Let's see how far this story has traveled. If you enjoyed this revenge drama, please make sure to subscribe to Victoria Revenge Stories, hit the like button, and smash that hype button to help this video get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.